So, I'm not sure how many of you have heard of the Bhagavad-gita. Anyone here? A few people maybe? Heard of the Bhagavad-gita? Usually the first thing that happens with that one is like we struggle with how to pronounce it. Bhagavad-gita means Song of God. Bhagavan means a supremely opulent person. So we're individual spirit souls, we're an atma, soul within this body, and there's a supreme soul from whom we've come from. So from the tip of our toe to the top of our head, we're aware of the pain and pleasure in this body. You know, like you step on a stone and it's like, ouch, I have your bare foot, or you know, like the end of winter, and you go walking barefoot and your feet are a little, I guess it's called unconditioned, right? They get conditioned over summer, you know, but like we've got a stone driveway and it's like, ooh, oh, you know, as you walk along it. But, you know, after a while in the summer it's not so bad. But from the, you know, and if someone pulls your hair, you know, maybe you're at the hairdresser and they just, you know, get a hair and it's like, you know. So it's like you can feel it, but the person next to you can't feel it because they're another individual spirit soul. Right? Sometimes people talk about, you know, we're all one and we are all connected, but we're all individual, eternally individual. Krishna states in the Bhagavad-gita that never was there a time when I did not exist, nor you, nor all these kings. He was speaking in a battlefield situation, and there was many kings assembled there. And it's really important for us to understand this concept of oneness doesn't mean we lose our individuality. We're always eternally an individual. We're an individual now, and we're aware of that, but that individuality continues. It's not just while you have this body on. You know, like, I don't know how many of you have got pets, but, you know, if you've got a couple of dogs, you'll notice they've got individual personalities. They don't have the same personality. Even twins have individual personalities. And if you've seen any, you know, like kind of documentary things about Siamese twins, people are really curious as to, you know, do they think the same? Do they feel the same? You know, like I remember reading about when a couple of girls, like one likes ice cream and one likes oranges, or, you know, like something like that, right? They have the same digestive system, you know, they've got individual tastes. And so that individuality is always there. And with that individuality, we express it in different ways, not only when we're embodied in a carcass, basically, but when we don't have a material body, when we're in our pure spiritual form, we remain an eternal individual spirit soul. And as an individual spirit soul, we can relate to the Supreme Soul. So the Supreme Soul has innumerable offspring, innumerable living entities emanate from the Supreme Soul. And he remains individual eternally, never divided. Supreme Being is one, and people around the world call him by different names. People on different planets call him by different names. But there's a Supreme Source that we've all come from, and that Supreme Source always remains individual. And so for us to try to understand the Bhagavad-gita Krishna spoke, to try and help us understand that we're an eternal individual spirit soul, and our natural function and our natural happiness, our natural freedom is to relish, to be situated or resituated in that individual loving relationship with the Supreme Soul in a certain mood or with a certain flavor. And the Supreme Person enjoys relating to each and every one of us. And he wants us to come home, back to the spiritual world. My teacher's teacher, Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami, often used the term go home, back to Godhead. And so in this world, we can have many troubles and we have good times and we have bad times. And on that journey through life, we can be struggling unless we remember this world's temporary. I'm an eternal spirit soul. And I should try and use this human form of life I have to go back home. Right? So on any journey, there's all sorts of experiences, and you may go through all sorts of trouble. Maybe you go overseas for work, but on your way back home, even though there may be troubles, sort of airport stuff and hold-ups and bags lost and whatever, if you're on your way home, there's still a sense of happiness. You don't get so distraught by your bags being lost on your way home as you do on your way to your destination, right? If you're going overseas for work, or going overseas for a holiday. Because you're going home, and so that it's kind of like a feeling of being safe and being comfortable and protected. And so that, for the soul, if we use this human form of life to work on our relationship with God and use our time and energy to help us go back home, then the troubles and tribulations of this world will not be as big a deal, because it's all just, you're on your way home, right? And so, yep, that happened and that wasn't great and that wasn't great and that was great and that wasn't, and whatever, It's kind of like it doesn't have the same kind of, you don't end up on the ups and downs of life the same, right? It's got more of an even keel because you know where you're heading, right? So, I've got some quotes here to read. Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami described, at the present state of our existence, it is difficult to be unaffected by the temporary happiness and distress pertaining to this body and mind. It's not possible to assert that we don't identify with the body and mind. And so there's no possibility, if we identify with the body and the mind, there's no possibility that we're going to be indifferent to what goes on. But it depends on how attached we are. So acquiring transcendental knowledge does not mean that you become indifferent to the present state that you're experiencing, but it means that we should not be overwhelmed by the coming and going of happiness and distress. We must know the nature of these temporary states of happiness and distress. It would be unwise to ignore them. If one is fortunate enough to understand the happiness and distress of of the body does not touch the spirit soul, then we will gradually experience transcendental knowledge. We will begin to relish a transcendental peace eternally, even in the midst of worldly happiness and distress. Real peace can be obtained only on the transcendental stage of existence. That is a state of real contentment. If after a long time someone embarks on a homeward journey, the pleasure of being homeward bound diminishes the accompanying distress of the journey. The inconveniences of travelling become subordinate to the pleasure of heading homeward. So just remember, this is a temporary place. Whatever we're going through, the ups and downs are temporary. The happiness, we wish it would continue, but it won't. It's going to be up and down. But we want to head home, back to the spiritual world where we belong. The soul doesn't belong here, embodied with a material body and mind, encumbered by this body and mind. We belong free, peaceful, happy, in the spiritual world. The chanting process is what will purify our heart and mind so that we can more easily go back home. It cleanses away all our material conditioning, our material attachments and desires, so that we will even want to go back home. Right? We identify with this and it's like, this is just life, you know. So the chanting will purify our heart and mind and give us a taste of deep happiness and peace when we remember I'm an eternal spiritual being and I'm part of the Supreme Eternal Being. Thank you.